We are live. Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. My name's Carrie Bible, and today we're going to talk all about the life, career, and legacy of 1940 star Carole Landis. And joining me today is the great Liz Locke, who is pretty much the official Hollywood Kitchen cocktail expert around here. And we have a new person joining the Hollywood Kitchen universe today. He was referred to me by my good friend Sherry Snyder. She spoke very highly of him and said, "You absolutely must talk to this man." So I'm very happy to welcome Rich Shmelter. Am I pronouncing that right?
You got it right. You
Rich
got it right, Gary.
Shmelter to the Hollywood Kitchen universe. He has written a biography on Carole Landis, made a documentary on Carole Landis, and really is the ultimate authority on her life. So, Rich, thank you for joining us today.
I'm looking around to see if you're talking about somebody else. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very,
Sure.
very flattering. Nice to be
Sure.
here.
Sure. So I want to kick off as I try to do these days with saying, for those who might be watching that are still learning about Hollywood history or very new to it, who was Carole Landis and why is she relevant today? If you could sort of give us the 101 for those who may not be familiar.
Sure. Carole Landis was an up and coming star in the 1940s. To me, she was probably the most glamorous person in all of Hollywood history. Again, that's just my opinion. But she was on the rise as a star, and then World War II started, and she devoted all of her time. She made a few movies in between, but she devoted her time to the war effort, entertaining troops over in Europe for 5 months, and then in the South Pacific for 2 months. And that was her life at that point. And she gave it her all. And even while I was doing research on her project, I was looking at it and I was just going, oh my gosh, it was just tiring listening to all that she did and the struggles that she had while she was entertaining troops. So she was, to me, the ultimate Hollywood entertainer during World War II.
And I felt like, given this 4th of July weekend, that kind of felt like a really good topic for us to delve into. So, Rich, how did you first learn about Carole Landis? What was your introduction to her?
When I was about 10 years old, my one uncle, I was next to my parents. He was the ultimate relative. And we were over by their house one time, and he had this room and he had things set up from his war years, his medals and all. And he had this roll of money that was currency that was all rolled up, and he had all these autographs on it. And I saw the autograph Carole Landis on top, and I didn't know who this was or anything. And then I came to realize, because my uncle didn't talk much about what happened during the war, but my mom filled me in on it. And he was a waist gunner on a B-24 bomber over in the South Pacific, and they were flying low to fly in and to bomb some oil refineries off the coast of New Guinea. And the plane was hit, and he was blown out of the plane into the Pacific Ocean, and he was only one of four surviving members of that crew. And he suffered, badly broken leg. Everything was he was okay after that, after he was all patched up and all. But all he remembers was he was floating in the South Pacific, and all he could remember was his mom years ago saying to him to cover his eyes in case there was ever fire. So here he's floating in the South Pacific with fire everywhere around him, and he just remembered that. That was the last thing that he remembered. While he was recovering from his wounds, Carole Landis came through the hospital ward and ran into him and sat down, talked with him like she did everybody. And she saw this roll of money and she signed it. Well, I was intrigued by this. And all he told me was, he goes, boy, she was so pretty and so nice. And about a month later, my mom and dad were watching a movie called I Wake Up Screaming, which was Carole's big breakout movie in the fall of 1940, 41, I'm sorry. And all of a sudden my mom said, she goes, oh, that's Carole Landis, the one that signed Uncle Gene's money. And I looked and I was like, I kind of knew why I liked her, but then as I got a few years old and I really realized why I liked her. And so then it just became an infatuation with mine for her for many, many years. And then after my uncle passed away in 1991, I started to think, well, I'd really like to do a project on it. But again, life gets in the way and all. Finally, I was able to put everything into perspective, had some help from some wonderful people, especially this wonderful lady named Nocera that was amazing. And she opened up a vault of Carole Landis memorabilia and all to me, and she really helped. Unfortunately, she passed away shortly after I completed the project, and I miss her a great deal because she was a fantastic person on this.
That's a terrific story. And we'd like to dedicate this episode to Liz, the lady who helped you research Carol and bring her story to the world.
Thank you. Well deserved. Wonderful lady.
Of course. So the question that inevitably always comes up on Hollywood Kitchen, did they ever cook? Did they make any of these recipes?
Well, this recipe, Carole Landis was an egg fanatic. I mean, she loved eggs. She was actually when she
So
was
is
over
he.
when she was over in Europe, she was talking with a soldier, and she talked for a few hours just about eggs, all different kinds of eggs, because there was such a ration on eggs, and they were like looked at like gold, and she just loved them. So that's what she had her maid, or her cook, I should say, cook this one recipe that you're making now for all of her different parties that she had. So that I'd like to say maybe she did cook them herself sometimes, but this recipe was from her cook herself. But I'm sure Carol had a very watchful eye over it because, again, she was an egg aficionado.
And you mentioned this recipe came from a 1942 issue of Photo Play
Yes,
about eggs and rationing during the war.
yes, yes.
Okay, very cool. Well,
And it was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to start to make this in a minute. I ran into some difficulties this morning. My cat close up smelled the hard-boiled eggs, and while I was trying to get something off the stove, he ran up on the table and started eating the eggs, eating the yolks. It was a big mess. That's why I was late getting on Zoom. It's been a morning.
Oh, you're fine.
So, and I didn't put in all the ingredients because if he smells fish, all bets are off. And she's talking about putting caviar or anchovies, and I'm like, oh man, he can't handle that. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
kind
you
of
don't want to do that.
do the best I can with the situation that has presented itself this morning. So, but let's get to
We'll
the
get you through
cocktail.
it, Carrie.
Huh?
Yeah, I had the easy one. So this recipe was from the Stork Club bar book. And it said that Carol loved this Bloody Mary, and it is so simple. You know, Bloody Marys have become ultra complicated in our modern world, but Carol's was extremely easy. 3 ounces of vodka, 6 ounces of tomato juice, half a lemon, you juice the lemon, and then 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. That's it. And I put it in my little drink mixer back here just to get it, well mixed with some ice. And it's very delicious, dangerous, I would say. There's a lot of vodka in here. And I had a few sips on an empty stomach, and it was like, whoa, I feel that. But even her martini recipe was also very simple. Vodka and good quality vermouth. It was a lot of vermouth. I was surprised. The recipe had, I think, like an ounce of vermouth in it, which seems like a lot. But I tested that one as well one night, and it was excellent. So, but because we're recording this kind of midday, I thought a Bloody Mary would be great for this episode. So, cheers to Carol.
Here's to Carol. She also liked scotch, but that would be basically scotch neat. That was it. So I wanted to find something that was maybe a little more exciting than that, than just pouring some scotch in a rock glass. Say, there you go.
And I also broke out my flamingo barware because I love her movie Moon Over Miami. And the Flamingo Hotel I wish that existed today. I would check in. I loved that hotel so much. So
That was her big breakout movie from 20th Century Fox. That was her first film under 20th Century Fox before she
so
did it.
fun.
Really nice color, beautiful color. I used a lot of the footage from that because it's public domain. I used that in my documentary from the beginning, and boy, it really catches people's eye.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it was
Her costumes in that in particular were gorgeous. So I
yes.
could see that being visually appealing in a book or in a documentary. Yeah.
It gets the mind, it gets it right off the bat. A great friend of mine produced the documentary, Darren Hayes, and I want to give a
Mhm.
shout out to Darren because the documentary would not have been nothing without him and Liz. And but yeah, Darren was even like, wow, this is going to be great, when he set it up, and it really get your attention right away, and it was Moon over Miami highlights. So
Great.
yeah, it was great.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get to the deviled egg recipe, which I will not be able to take to a party because he has raked his tongue over a lot of it. But I'm gonna still try to make it at home just to say that I've made it. So I boiled the eggs and I took out the yolks. You've already had some. Okay. And then yolks. It's been a time, you guys. Oh my God. I try so hard in life. What can I say? All right, the yolks are in here. So I'm going to mash up the yolks. And then Carole says to boil the eggs for 20 minutes. I could not find any dry mustard at the store yesterday. I don't know what was up with that. But you need chopped, let's see, Worcester sauce, butter. I'm not going to use butter for mine because he goes nuts at butter as well. I'm going to have to hire a cat sitter for future episodes so I can actually get stuff accomplished around here. That's just going to kind of have to happen. Anyway, all right. So what we are going to do is the mustard, the mayonnaise, and the Worcestershire sauce. So I'm beating up, or not beating up, I'm smashing up the egg yolks right now. And I'm not going to put it all in a strainer to make a paste and then put it in a pastry bag. That kind of sounds like a little bit more complicated of a step. And also I'm just doing a few of these and I'm not doing a massive amount. So, okay, let's see. And by the way, she has a recipe for cabbage salad and she has one for hamburger cabbage rolls. And I am, when I can get a cat sitter, going to try the hamburger cabbage rolls and see how that one turns out.
Now, that actually sounds really good. When I was sending you that, I'm looking and going, boy, that sounds really good.
Yeah, I might try to make that when I get a cat sitter and then post pictures of it. So at least I can say that I have tried it. So
Sounds good.
Let's see. All right. So all right, I'm trying to figure out how many portions to do because I've only got a small amount of eggs here. So I guess I'm gonna eyeball it here.
Speaking of eyeballing, close-up is just riveted on all this. Choosing his moment.
My vet said he is the most food motivated animal he's seen in his veterinary career. So recently I was at my kitchen table eating Thai food and close-up was like the other end of the apartment. He flew across the apartment, landed on the table and stuck his face in my dinner. And I was like,
Oh.
how did it happen? Like, it happened literally in the blink of an eye. Like I didn't even have time to like respond. I totally can see how he killed so many mice at the cemetery because he's a very stealth hunter and he knows how to zero in on his prey. You know, it's just nothing's going right. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. We'll get you through this, Terry. Don't worry about it.
Huh?
We'll get you through this. Don't you worry.
I know my previous episode on Josephine Baker, I got all the groceries at the store the night before, and then all the registers broke at the store, and they would only take cash, and I didn't have any cash. Then everybody in the store was like abandoning their grocery. I'm like, you know, sometimes getting things done in life, it feels like you're wading through a river of molasses. Am I the only person that feels this way, or?
No, not at all.
Oh man. I need to go get the salt and pepper, but
Time.
that would mean leaving him unattended, and that cannot happen. So, all right,
We'll
I've
just
got
pretend there's salt and pepper, and we're talking about Hollywood anyway. Let's just, let's just
exactly.
pretend.
Here's kind of my policy on these episodes. You know, people say to me, oh, oftentimes, oh, I'm sure they never made this or they didn't do the cooking themselves, and I'm like, well, first off, it's a way to humanize them, and I love to do that.
Yeah.
But also, if it's a star who wasn't known as a devoted cook, I feel a little more safe in improvising. But when it's someone like Joan Crawford, Vincent Price, Marlene Dietrich, I do exactly as they say, because all of them in particular were known for loving food and being avid cooks. So if they say to do something, I never veer off those recipes usually because they were so, do you know what I mean? They were so hands-on about it.
Right. I always heard about Vincent Price being very passionate about cooking. I think he has a few cookbooks. He had a few cookbooks, didn't
There's
he?
3 of them. Yeah, I've met his daughter Victoria, And she said to me that he was obsessed one summer in her childhood with creme brulee. And she said, I got so sick of eating creme brulee because he was making it all the time and then making her taste it and give her feedback. And
Yeah.
but she's so nice, though. Okay, so I've made the paste right here. And we're going to skip the pastry bag part, but I am now going to put the paste into the eggs while I have a riveted cat watching my every move. Trying to find the one that he didn't lick. So life inside my household, I swear.
Well, they look very tasty. I mean, even if there is maybe close-up saliva,
I was gonna
they
take them
look
to the party,
delicious.
but then when I saw him licking them when I was in the kitchen, I was like, well, there goes that. So, all right.
Or you could have a raffle like that, like just which one he licked, you know? I mean,
Given his fan base, I could probably give away
Right.
stuff he
People
licked.
would
boy, yeah.
people would bid on
I was
that.
I was coming out of a horror convention like a year ago in LA, and three girls stopped me and they're like, "Oh my God, Close-Up's mom is here!" I was like, any achievements I rack up in my life will be completely eclipsed by which I'm totally fine with, by the way. All right, so I'm pretty much done here. This is a very simple, quick, and easy recipe, and I'm sure Carol would approve.
It's
Yep.
eggs. She would definitely approve.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing to me the difficulties that people must have had during World War II because a few years ago Danny Miller and I did an episode about the Margaret O'Brien's sugar recipes, and they were sugar rationing recipes. So I
Mhm.
think a lot of these fan magazines were running recipes of like, okay, it's wartime. We've got to ration. We've got to be really, really strict. Here's ways you can still make that fun or tasty. And that had to have been a really difficult time living through a time like that, when everything was so limited.
I think most people, they used to have victory gardens years ago. I remember my dad used to tell me about that when he was growing up. They had a victory garden. They actually, had, I mean, they grew up, in the city of Cleveland, Cleveland, Ohio, but it was like people had chickens in their, chicken coops and all, and they would go and they would be able to get meat from, relatives that maybe had a farm somewhere. So they were able to get the products like that. They just couldn't buy them in the store, but they had their victory garden. So they were able to make quite a bit. With the chickens, you can actually have eggs, and of course, you have a meal with it. But um, there was a lot of things that they were able to do that way, and sugar that was a big ration and all. Of course, nylons. The women couldn't get nylons. They used to, I guess, even have them painted on their legs. I used to hear all kinds of things about that.
My whole family lives in Savannah, Georgia, and our neighbor Walt, he's in his 90s. I think his late 90s. Anyway, he and I hang out every time I'm home, and he told me that when he was a little boy, his sister was so bummed that she couldn't have the nylons with the seams. And he said every morning she would stand on the top of or the back of the bathtub, and he'd have to get a makeup pencil and draw the seam down each one of her legs every morning so at least she could still feel like she had the seam stockings.
Total improvise, just to improvise. You had to do what you had to do.
Even during lockdown, like because I started all this during lockdown, the Hollywood Kitchen stuff, there were so many times when you couldn't find certain things in grocery stores where I live, and it was a struggle. And so I have a network of friends, and we all kind of be like, okay, you have pasta? I don't have pasta, but I could use toilet paper. Okay, let's meet in the creek corner and we'll trade. And like we would just borrow and trade and make do. And I'm like, wow, this is
Like the old days trading bubblegum cards or sports
Mhm.
cards or whatever they call them nowadays. You know?
Right? Right? So what are your favorite Carole Landis films?
I love I Wake Up Screaming. She played Vicky Lynn in that movie, and classic movie. Anybody that hasn't seen it, or if you've seen it numerous times like I have, I would highly recommend it. It's just a great, great movie. Fantastic. That was her breakout role, and also A Scandal in Paris, which I saw the highlights of it, and I have not seen the whole thing yet. So I really want to see that, but I've heard a lot of good things about her performance in there. Having Wonderful Crime was a movie that she made right before she went over to the South Pacific with Jack Benny's troupe. And that movie was completed, and then she left, I believe, a few days later. So that's one of my favorites also. And that to me was Carole Landis in her prime. I mean, she was to me, she was always gorgeous, but at that time when she did the South Pacific tour, she was at the height of her gorgeousness. That's not even a word, but that's that she was at the height of her sex appeal, so to say. And the GIs just loved her.
Let's talk about, because you and I had a long conversation the other night. Talk about the difficulties, because to the outside world, you'd think, oh, you're a big movie star, you're going on a global tour for the troops. On the surface, I'm sure that sounds glamorous. The reality is it was brutal. So talk about the challenges she faced and all the stuff that happened to her during the process of this.
It was amazing. I mean, they, she was bombed at. She was shot while she was in an being shot at in an airplane. She almost crashed into the Rock of Gibraltar in an airplane crash. And ironically, one of her favorite movie stars was Carole Lombard. And she took her first name. Her real name was Frances Ridsty. She changed it legally to Carole Landis, but she wanted to take that name of Carole in honor of Carole Lombard, and she just found the name Carole Landis going through like 200 different entries she could find, and it seemed to match perfectly. But ironically, Carole Lombard crashed or the plane crashed in Nevada, and Carole Landis almost crashed into the Rock of Gibraltar. The pilot was just able to get it away at that time. Um, as I said, she was shot at. They used to have fighter pilots flying around the area where she was just to watch out for enemies, the enemy planes. Japanese snipers were in the trees over in the South Pacific. They had to try to get them. She flew in under enemy fire. She did it all. And I mean, sacrificing they didn't have any dressing rooms or anything like this most of the time. They were in the field, so they just basically went to a latrine. They tried to do what they could to make their appearance so good for the soldiers because they had to put on a perfect show all the time. And her first tour was 5 months long. She had her appendix taken out while she was overseas. She actually got married. Her second marriage was to a man named Thomas Wallace. And was it her second? I'm sorry, her third marriage was to Thomas Wallace. He was a fighter pilot over in Europe. That marriage didn't last too long because, the whole movie star, handsome pilot, it didn't last too long because all the glam kind of faded away, and then they really didn't know each other all that well. But she had the romance there. She had her appendix taken out. One time she was set to do a show, and all of a sudden a bombing the Germans were coming over to bomb, and they dragged her with the mink stole on, beautiful gown, high heels and all flying out of her high heel shoes. They dragged her into a muddy trench where she had to be in there for a while. After it was all over, she came out. They were able to clean up the best that they could, and she performed. They performed on the back of flatbed trucks, anything that they could find, and especially in the South Pacific, that was probably the most brutal for her. It was 2 months, and they were deep in the jungles. They were, with malaria, dysentery. She had malaria, which affected her the rest of her life. And again, she was shot at. e- Everything. I mean, the sacrifice was never enough for what she always felt that the GIs had, and she was willing to give it her all, and she really did. She gave it her all during all this.
That's really incredible. They talk about military people having PTSD, and it's, of course, very understandable. I don't think they would have called it that at the time, but
No.
it seems to me the entertainers probably would have had that as well. I mean, you're a movie star one minute, and the next minute you're getting malaria and getting shot at. And I mean, that's got to really be psychologically traumatizing.
It was because, she used to have to go into hospital wards. Excuse me. She used to have to go into hospital wards. And despite everything that she saw in those hospital wards, she had to be cheery. She had to be on her game. And to see all this and these people, saying, "Could you write to my mom?" She wrote letters. She took addresses of all these soldiers. She wrote personal letters to all of all those families. And it was just incredible what she did. And I do believe she had little bit of PTSD because she was on the front lines. She got as close to the front as she could. And again, seeing the horrors of war like that, when she came back to Hollywood, it changed her. And she didn't look at things the same way. And I truly believe that had she would have lived longer than unfortunately 29 years, I believe she would have really gotten involved with a lot of the veterans groups and all. And I think she would have become known like one of her co-entertainers, Martha Raye, did. She was with Martha Raye in the European tour, and Mitzi Mayfair, which was she was an incredible dancer, and Kay Francis, who was also a diehard fan of. She was a fan of Kay Francis's when she was a little girl, and growing up. And it was like she had pictures of Kay Francis everywhere in her room. So little did she know, a few years later, Kay Francis was going to be with her on these tours. So but yeah, I think she would have taken the taken the way that Martha Raye did and dedicated herself to a lot of the veterans groups.
And she made the film Four Jills in a Jeep. Was that something she wrote
Yeah.
herself, or was that just based on things she'd experienced?
She wrote the book. Apparently, she had a ghostwriter doing it, but she wrote most of it because she used to do articles for newspapers, for magazines like Photo Play, Screenland. She did a lot of articles on all this, the war experiences, and they put all this together. She did a like a series for Four Jills in a Jeep, and then they put it into a book, and it was released in 1944. Excuse me. And Hollywood, 20th Century Fox already wanted to do a movie about that. But of course, the book didn't. I was fortunate enough to get a copy of the book and I read it, and it really helped me with my notes during this project. And immensely, it helped me. And she wanted the book to be exactly like she wanted the movie to be exactly like the book. Unfortunately, Hollywood, they're going to take this and take that. We can't do this, we can't do that, and they embellished a lot of different things. Like they had them riding camels, and they had this, like, it was this great fun experience. And they did have her marriage mentioned in there. Of course, her husband Thomas Wallace wasn't in the movie, and they changed his name for the character. But uh, nothing was really that was really about the only thing that really was authentic about her experience. So she was a little disheartened by that, and the movie got good reviews, but it was not one of her favorites. She was proud of her war service and everything. She was proud of the book, but the way that Hollywood depicted it, she wasn't too impressed by it.
Wow. Um, what was her relationship like with Daryl Zanuck? Because he was notoriously a very, very tough man to work for.
He was a notorious womanizer. He liked having his little afternoon with different ladies, and unfortunately, Carol was one of them. And she played the game, because again, at that time, you did what you had to do things for roles, and she wanted to be a star. But when she came back from her first tour, Daryl Zanuck was very upset that she went overseas for this tour because she was also one of his favorites in many ways, and she was an up and coming star, and she was a moneymaker for him. But she changed a lot, and she was finally saying, no, this changed me. She didn't want to play these games anymore. She wanted to be known as a star for her talents. And she could sing, she could be in comedy, she could be in drama. She had it all. Carole Landis had it all. She was even on the stage in New York after she came back from her second tour, and in a stage production called The Lady Says Yes. And it didn't last too long, but she had that experience then, and she was even on stage a couple times before she broke free, or before she broke loose in the movies. But uh, the relationship soured. He just let her contract run its course, and then she wound up having to go to England to make some movies. Her final movies that she made were in England in like 1946, 47, and even in 48 into 48.
Okay.
Was it at that studio that she became known as it was the Ping Girl? Is that right?
That was when she was with Hal Roach, and
Okay.
she could
Okay.
not stand. They wanted, everybody had a moniker at that time, and they came out with the Ping Girl. Hal Roach came out with that, and they were having this big event at Ciro's restaurant, that they were Ciro's nightclub, I should say, that they were going to, have this big unveiling of the Ping Girl and all, and she didn't even show up. She didn't not why she did not like she didn't like the sound of it, and they said, that's the noise, that's the sound that a man's heart makes, when she, when they see her, but she kind of mistook it as something else, that I want to keep it clean, but
Yeah.
she mis she mistook that she thought it was kind of like a a slander toward her,
Mhm.
and understandably so. She was attractive, and I'm sure a lot of gentlemen felt that way about her, but she just did not like that. But she loved being called the GI goddess, the blonde bomber, and those came from the military guys, and that meant everything to her.
That's
My
great.
dad was in Vietnam and he remembers Raquel Welch coming to Vietnam and performing for the troops. And my dad remembers that to this day. And it's like when you're over there, you're young, it's terrifying, you're in this war. Seeing someone from back home that's beautiful and glamorous that goes all that way just to entertain you, that is so meaningful. I'm sure any of those men that survived all of that, I'm sure they took that memory of her with them.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's one of the memories that my uncle would talk about was Carole Landis and seeing her with the Jack Benny troupe. And Martha Tilton was the singer, and June Bruner was a great piano player, and uh, Adler, forgot Larry Adler was a harmonica player that was just they just all fit together in this great troupe. And most of the people that I spoke to, the veterans years ago, they had nothing but fond memories of the Jack Benny troupe, and they just could not say enough about, all that Carol did. And again, like I said, my uncle talked about Carol Landis quite a bit. As I got older, he talked about her, and just, what she meant to him to sit at the edge of his bed and talk to him and just go about and just give tirelessly of herself. And it was just a fascinating story for me. And that was the nucleus of what got me going on this.
It's funny. My dad was wounded in Vietnam, and he remembers Troy Donahue and Jill St. John coming to the hospital ship. And he was really hoping Jill St. John would visit his bed, but he got Troy Donahue instead. And I said, well, I would have been excited about that. He still resents the fact that he never got to meet Jill St. John. So yeah, it is amazing, the morale boost and the memories that these stars provide to people over there.
I had such a crush on Jill St. John when I was about 6 or 7. Again, I didn't understand why, but I saw her in an episode of Batman. And I was like, "Wow, who's this?" But then, I mean, then she was in a James Bond movie years later, and oh yeah, I was a big fan of Jay. She was one of my first Hollywood crushes.
Being that I give a tour of a cemetery, and that's kind of the thing that people, if they know me, that's probably what they know. But I think a lot about life and death and legacy, what it all means. I kind of think about that like every day. And it kind of makes me sad that when Carol's name comes up, the only thing or the first thing that comes up is, oh, she died by suicide. She died really young. The Rex Harrison wouldn't leave his wife for all this stuff. And I find it kind of frustrating because I don't think anybody wants to be remembered for the worst moment of their life or for as being a tragedy story. I don't know that anybody wants that for their legacy. And I feel like it's the elephant in the room. Like, I don't want to not address it or acknowledge it. But by the same token, I don't want to dwell on it because I think, as I said on the Maryland episode, I said, I think that's the least of the story,
Right.
you know?
That's why when I did this book, I wanted to focus on all the great things that she did and remember her in a way that she gave so much of herself. And as you said, Carrie, anything you look about Carol Landis, oh, the Tragic Venus, or Carol's Last Days, or things like this, and people look at that and they read about this, and that's all that they look at. So if they see a movie of hers, oh, that's the lady that, ended her life when she was 29. No, that's the lady that gave life to people that were fighting for this country. And remember her for that, okay? And when I did the documentary on her, I ended it very patriotically with that. I refused to put anything in there. Unfortunately, in the book, I did discuss her life, leading up to the tours, and then her life after. And as I even put in the book, that this was the hardest part that I did not look forward to doing that. Even though it was at the end of the book, I was looking forward to wrapping it up. It was the part of the book that I didn't want to do, but I still had to do it. And I was out in Los Angeles numerous times, and went out to Hollywood. Um, yeah, not
First one, Glendale, I think.
Glendale. I'm sorry. And I had a brain lock there for a minute. And I went out there in Forest Lawn. I went out there and found Carol was buried, and had a chance to pay my respects. And my wife was there, and I'm talking to her about it because she didn't know Carole Landis. She heard of Carole Lombard. And I told her, I said, and she was real close to my uncle. She thought my uncle was great. So when we got to the gravesite, I was talking to her about Carole Landis, and she was like, "Oh my gosh," and she says, "Uncle Gene met her." I said, "Yes, yes," and we're talking to. So she took the picture of the grave so I could put it in the book and all. But uh, it was just a real nice moment to spend about 15 minutes with her at Forest Lawn. And it was, if that's the closest you're going to get to seeing somebody like that. And it really did me good because it was just nice to see. We are going to be close to that area and all. And I was like, we have to go out to Forest Lawn. So it was really nice. It was really nice.
There's something so poignant about standing at a person's grave because that's where their earthly journey came to an end. It's like
Mhm.
the period at the end of the sentence, so to speak. And it's kind of a sacred thing in a way. And, even on my tour, I try so hard not to delve into and or expound upon like the tragic or the, I mean, I acknowledge it without dwelling on it, if that makes sense. But I feel like I think all of us do have a responsibility to these people to like tell their stories, share their artistry, but do it in a way that honors them and that honors that life,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like I see it as sort of
Oh,
like the
absolutely.
sacred responsibility, if you will. And that may not get as many hits or clicks or whatever, but I feel like I wouldn't want to be defined by something bad that happened to me. You know what I mean? It's like how you want to be
I'm
remembered.
sure.
And I just really think a lot about that.
I think so many people have a tendency to forget, when they look at old movies or any movies, the the tragic stuff is the things that attract people. It's like a train wreck. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
don't look at it, but you're going to look at it. And I honestly believe I see things, A Tragic Life in Hollywood. They talk about Carol Landis that way, or A Tragic Venus, anything like that. I want to remember her as Hollywood's glamorous patriot because that is what she did. She brought so much joy. So, obviously you have to discuss a person's demise in life, to make the whole story come full circle. But just focus on the good things that the person did. And Carol, it wasn't just good, it was extraordinary what she did.
And I just think too about what they struggled with behind the scenes, because I think, especially for a lot of us, it's easy to look at the lives of someone else from the outside. Be like, oh, they're so beautiful, and they're rich, and they're a movie star, and they have everything, and oh my God, they must be so happy. And it's like, you have no idea, even in the most seemingly happy people, what's going on behind those closed doors, what kind of pain or
Well, I
issues,
think too,
problems they deal with. And, you know,
I think too, sometimes, you're living your life by a script, and you have to get into these different. And I'm not an actor by any stretch of the imagination, but from what I'm gathering about this industry, is you see a script, you have to act this way, and you get so immersed into a role that I think maybe sometimes these people kind of forget who they actually are. And then you have to be all glamorous, you have to be glamorous all the time. And when you're out in public, you have to be at top of your game all the time, or you're in the gowns or in the tuxedos, and you're going out to Ciro's or the Trocadero, or and it's like, oh, look at this, look how joyous this is and all. But sometimes it's such a fantasy land that, again, people kind of have a tendency to forget who they are. And I think sometimes that plays a big factor in just life in general.
every
I
one of them.
wondered too if she how she felt about kind of being second banana to Betty Grable in so many movies. It was like Carol was in some incredible movies, but she wasn't like the tip-toppy like headliner star. And I wondered like did that hurt at times? Like she's trying so hard to make it and to be the big name. And it's so inspiring to know that like she found purpose in her life with the work that she did with the USO, but you know, you have to wonder like did she like was she looking for something like that because she wasn't getting what she needed from Hollywood and the studio system?
That's
I
a
think I think she truly wanted to do that for the military. I mean, she was on the
Mhm.
rise. She was
Mhm.
definitely on the rise. And a funny story where you brought up Betty Grable was, there was a little bit of a rivalry between Carole Landis and Betty Grable. I think more so on Betty Grable's side from what I've experienced, but or from what I've read, I should say.
Mhm.
But the one interesting story was, Betty Grable was, the $1 million legs, the pinup girl and everything. Well, she went around a bunch of GIs, and the one GI went up to get her autograph, and these GI, then more GIs came around and they said, do you know Carole Landis? And that I guess really rocked Betty Grable. So I thought that was a
I
great
love
story. I had a chuckle on that as I
that.
was writing that. Yeah.
And another thing that always makes me think about the stars who really contributed in World War II was the sacrifices that they made for their own career. I mean, honestly, Carol could have gone, I'm going to stay in Hollywood, keep making movies all the time. I don't have to go do this. But to put your career on hold, more or less, especially as an actress where you have a 5 to 10, maybe 15-year run before a lot of them back then were put out to pasture, as it were, you kind of have a window of time to make your biggest and best work. And so to kind of step away from that and say, if there's something else I need to go do, that's a big sacrifice career-wise, financially, personally. I mean, there's so many levels on which that is a huge sacrifice to make.
Even like I said, she made a few movies when she came back. She made a movie called Wintertime with Cesar Romero, who was her dear friend, and she and Sonia Henney. And she made the movie, but when she came back, that was in between her European and her Pacific tour. Daryl Zanuck again was upset with her for going and all. He made her, I think she was third or fourth billed, and she should have been top billing on that movie. And all she played was kind of this ditzy girl that, that it was so different than what she played in I Wake Up Screaming. And again, I Wake Up Screaming, I think um, I it's my favorite movie from hers, and I just idolize this woman. But in the movie, she's so snarky and things like that, and it's like you can see her acting credibility in there. I mean, you look at her and you go, well, she's kind of arrogant, not Carol Landis herself, but her character. She just really, really brought that out in there. She was just kind of arrogant and everything like that. And you could see it in the role. And the more success she had in the movie, as far as her character, the more kind of arrogant she got and everything like that. So it was just a great role for her. The way she performed this role, and just classic line. But she did all, and while she was making these movies, Carrie, in between her tours, she was also touring the United States. She was going down to Mississippi. She was going all around California to all the military bases, and I believe Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, even on the East Coast. So I mean, she covered the whole country as well as Europe and the South Pacific. So she hit all those hot islands over there once they were taken by the Marines and the Army, and just she just traveled so much. It's tiring to listen to what she did. I mean, when you see these tours, like, oh my gosh, how did she do this? And sometimes people complain like, geez, I got to get up and go to work. Well, you should see what she did. So read about her and see all that she gave.
I always encourage people to always look deeper, take a much closer look, because we're all complicated people, nuanced people. There's so much more to everybody than the sex symbol, the ping girl, the sex bomb, whatever. There's a whole layer upon layer of depth and stuff to
Oh,
explore
it, it
about someone's life.
Well, that's, when I started this project, like I said, when I was 11, or 10 or 11, I started to take an interest in her that way, just because of my uncle and just when I saw what she looked like and all. But as I say, as you get older and stuff like that, you don't really think much about all that. And then when all of a sudden it hit me like a freight train when my uncle passed away about, man, I should do this. This would be a heck of a tribute to him. And, to mention him in this project and all. And then I started to think, wow, all this glamour, like you see, glamour and flying here and everything. And when you strip all that away and you see, like you said, the person that was there. Again, now naturally I never knew her, but you almost kind of feel like you did. And when working with Liz, who knew her family, her nieces and nephews and all, and getting a perspective that way, it was almost like talking to Carole Landis through Liz, and just it really put a lot of things into perspective, and I was able to strip away just scratch the surface, I think, but really find out about her as a person, and really came out hopefully in the writing that I did on this and in the documentary, and it's despite everything that I do, no matter how many more books I'm going to write or books that I wrote before this. This Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot is is my opus, so to say. Other people that have known me, a friend of mine, Brian, said, and my friend Alan, who loves your show, by the way, he's just crazy about your show, and he was all excited that I was going to be on your show because of you. But
That's
thanks a lot,
shocking,
Alan.
but very
But
nice.
but yeah, my friend Brian, who's also a writer, he said, he goes, "This is your opus. This is your opus." But hopefully, I have 100 more books in me, but this will always be the one that means the most to me.
Well, it's been so nice. This has been a fascinating conversation. Oh my gosh. Liz, do you have
Hopefully, I
any?
came across okay.
Oh yeah. Liz, do you have any
Okay,
questions or
good.
comments or?
I do. So I am obsessed with the 1960s, particularly pop culture. Was Carol Landis actually the inspiration for Jennifer North in Valley of the Dolls?
Yes,
Oh wow.
yes,
Okay.
she was. She was. Jacqueline Suzanne and her were in that play together called A Lady Says Yes in 1940, in January of 1945. And apparently they had a little romantic tryst. I mean, I that's what
Amazing.
my, but yeah, she did that. She wrote that character in Valley of the Dolls, and it was based on Carol.
Wow. Yeah, I read that and I'm like, there's no way. This
Yes,
is
yes,
wild.
yes. All that I've
Amazing.
gathered, yes, yes. Yeah, they had quite the infatuation with each other.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised we have not brought up 1 million BC. This movie, speaking of wild, this movie is incredible. Carol did so much with not much that was given to her. Her lines were just like this weird made up language or grunts. She was amazing. I would love the book of like the behind the scenes on making that because first I was riveted, but also very worried for the iguanas in this movie. They looked this looks like a real reptile fight, and I'm worried one of them is not going to survive this. But no, if anyone hasn't seen that, it is just such a fun special effects extravaganza, and she is amazing in it. I really loved her performance.
Oh, I did too. I mean, and of course the Raquel Welch one. Carrie, when you're talking about Raquel Welch and your dad, it was like, when Raquel Welch did the movie back in 1966, but Carol Landis was the one that did that role first, and yeah, with Victor Mature in that movie, who
Oh,
was
his
kind of
hair
a
was
friend of his.
wild.
We
Yeah.
love Victor Mature at Hollywood Kitchen. I'm friendly with his daughter Victoria, and we did a whole episode on Victor. Did she get along with Victor? Because they were both at Fox. They seem to co-star pretty often.
She loved Victor Mature. I mean, Victor Mature was one of her buddies, and oh yeah, I mean, and I was always a huge fan of Victor Mature's. After I saw him and I Wake Up Screaming, and anything else that he did. Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was watching a movie called oh, what was it called? Easy Living with Victor Mature and Elizabeth Scott and Lloyd Nolan. And Carol did star with Lloyd Nolan and, of course, Victor Mature. And this movie was made a year after she passed away. Lucille Ball was in it also, in a serious role. But this movie was made in 1949, a year after Carol's passing. And I was watching this, and it was funny because I was running on the treadmill while I was watching this on Turner Classic Movies. And I'm watching, and I've seen it before too. But I was just catching bits and pieces as I was running. And I was thinking, boy, if Carol would have lived, she could have played the Elizabeth Scott role of Victor Mature's social climbing wife, or she could have played kind of the pathetic role of Lucille Ball as, secretary to Lloyd Nolan, who was in love with Victor Mature's character in the movie. And I was just thinking, boy, that would have been a great role for Carol. As I said, she could have covered the, feel sorry for me, or man, I just can't stand you, which you just can't stand Elizabeth Scott in this movie. Her character is just such a nasty person. But I could have seen Carole Landis pulling it off and, working with Lloyd Nolan and Victor Mature, who she worked with a few times, both of them. I thought that would have just been a spot on role for her. So I actually kind of placed her in my mind. I placed her in that movie. And it was an interesting movie for me to rewatch again after doing this book. I'm kind of
Seen her doing
thinking what could have
television.
been. I'm sorry,
I mean,
what?
I could have seen Carole Landis really doing well in television.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
She
Oh
was
yeah.
right at the cusp of when TV was kind of taking over, and she could have had a great career on TV.
She could have had a variety show of her own. She could
Yeah.
have done so many things again while working for the USO. And I think what I like to do is like when I see an end of a movie and I don't like how it ends, sometimes I like to change it in my own mind and say, okay, this is the way I want it to end. Did you ever see the movie The Roaring Twenties with James Cagney?
Long time ago.
Mm-mm.
At the end, I don't want to give anything away in case somebody hasn't seen it, but at the end, I don't like how it ends. So I kind of change change the ending in my own mind, and I kind of like to do that with Carol in real life, though. You know what I mean? If she would have lived, and I think it's a way to honor her life as it didn't end on a bathroom floor, on July 4th weekend back in 1948. I like it to think that she went on to, like you said, television and possibly even more roles in movies and working with the Veterans Administration and entertaining in Korea and possibly even Vietnam.
Oh.
So just her looks would have still kept going. She would have still been because the people that fought in Vietnam, their dads remember Carol Landis from World War II. So her name would have been pretty prevalent even then. So I like to think she would have gone on to do things like that.
Well, let's look at some of the comments because we do these live on Facebook, and I'd love to see what people say. So, Danny Miller. Hey, Danny. Danny's a frequent guest on Hollywood Kitchen. Good point about some people being only known for their tragedies. I admit my only thought of Landis was in relation to Rex Harrison. Thank you for bringing these people to the forefront and not just focusing on the tragic parts. We should make a list of other people who need this type of public persona rehabilitation.
Thank you, Danny, very much.
Thank you, Danny. So supportive. Always appreciate it. And Matthew Baca says, Carol will always be my hero.
Matthew, thank you, Matthew. Matthew is one of my Facebook friends on Carol Landis. Actually, Matthew helped lead me to some people, and unfortunately, he told me about Liz's passing when I didn't know it. Matthew is a great guy. Matthew, nice to hear from you. Thank you.
And where can people find you online? Where can they find your book and your documentary?
Well, you can go to just punch in Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot. The book will come up on Amazon, and of course, if you just go to YouTube, you can see the video, or I'm sorry, the documentary on that. And it did pretty well. It's doing pretty well, so I'm very pleased about that. So either way, but just go to Amazon, Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot, and you'll see the book come up. You can get it in ebook, and you can get it in physical copy also,
And tell
paperback.
us about some of the other stuff because you've written a book about Iwo Jima.
I write. The Iwo Jima is going to be coming out actually in a few weeks, and
Oh,
I'm just doing a few tweaks on it. It's called The Spearhead on Sulphur Island, about the Fifth Marine Division on Iwo Jima. Now they had the third and fourth divisions also, but the Fifth Marine Division was the one that raised the flag, and they get a lot more attention. I'm going to do two more projects on the third and fourth to honor them, but I started off doing the Fifth Marine Division. I'm also doing a book, finishing up a book called Hollywood Mob Star about Bugsy Siegel's time in Los Angeles, where a lot of people don't really know of him. And they remember him from Las Vegas, but I'm doing that. I'm doing that as well. And I'm able to do a lot of these projects that I had in the works for a while. I'm able to finally start putting them together, and it's just been a great time for me. And I'm also doing a book called Bo Harlow Monroe about the three sex symbols in Hollywood. That one is almost done. I've almost had that one done for a while, but I put that on the side to work with Carol and work on Iwo Jima. So I'm very, very excited about it. And some sports books also. I'm doing some sports books. So I'm staying very busy doing this, but maybe Bo Harlow and Monroe, when that comes out, maybe we'll chat again. Maybe we could have like a family style dinner, something that they all liked. Just putting it out there, Carrie.
Hey, I'm always up for new ideas. And Liz, where can people find you online? Tell us about your great book, Follow the Sun, and where people can get your book and where people can find you.
Yeah, so I am always at cinemasips.com. That's my weekly blog that I do of cocktail and movie pairings. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at cinemasips. And yeah, my book, Follow the Sun, just got a new cover this year. It was released 3 years ago, but the publisher decided we want to make a more summery, fun cover for this. So it got re-released. So that's pretty exciting. I think it turned out really well. And you can also find my writing in the zine Movie John. That's Movie Jawn. The new issue is all about cinematic hotels. And let me tell you, I wish I had seen Moon Over Miami before I picked my movie for this issue, because that would have been great for this issue. I ended up writing about bad times at the El Royale and the Cal Neva Lodge in Lake Tahoe, because it had a lot of glamorous Hollywood connections. But yeah, Movie John is a great zine for anybody that just loves old and new movies. I always say it's like, having a conversation with another friend of yours that loves movies as much as you do. And they also put out, I just want to show off this great record album to accompany the zine, which is pretty cool. And also this wonderful door knocker. Don't bother to knock when we're watching movies. So yeah, check out Movie John, check out Cinema Sips, and yeah, I love being a part of the Hollywood Kitchen. Thanks again for having me, Carrie.
I've been trying to get Rosalie Kicks to do an episode, and if you could help me wrangle her for this.
I will try. I think what we need to do is like pick something, and yeah, I'll wrangle Rosalie because she really wants to be on here and talk about Movie John. Yeah.
I know she's busy, and I'm busy, and Rich has been very patient with me.
No, I mean, it's just an honor to be on here. And now that when I saw Liz show the books, I just wanted to show
yes,
Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot. I don't know if you can see it.
Great, yeah,
nice.
That's the Hollywood Patriot.
Love that photo. Yeah,
it's
gorgeous.
I love it. And when you mentioned Don't Bother to Knock, I also did a book on Marilyn Monroe a couple years ago.
Oh, nice.
It's a short little one about the making of Niagara. So if people want to see
and that's mentioned in this issue because of the Niagara Falls honeymoon cottage.
Yes, yes.
That's great. I'll have to check that out.
I have to pinch myself at the cool people I am able to get for Hollywood Kitchen. I mean, this whole thing started in lockdown. Me totally home alone with almost no resources, trying to do something to entertain people and do something fun and joyful. And I'm just astounded this is my 167th episode. And I love doing it. I'm having so much fun. And I can't believe how fortunate I am to get to hang out with people like both of you. So this was such a joy tonight.
Right back at you, Carrie and Liz. It was nice to meet you.
It was really nice to meet you too.
Carrie, I see a lot of your stuff on Facebook, Carrie, but it's finally nice. I'm glad Sherry got us to connect. And again, thanks to Sherry. Sherry, you're awesome.
Yes,
and
I love Sherry.
And it was great. I had a great time. Hopefully, I came across okay. Hopefully, I made a lot of sense on this. I was trying not to say a lot, So
before Close Up devours the rest of this plate, I'm going to quickly eat the one egg he did not lick as a toast to Carole Landis. So to Carole.
Cheers to Carole.
Carole. I just have water right now.
Mm.
I'll have some tequila later.
And happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th of July to you too,
4th of
Liz. Nice to
July.
meet you.
And stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.